welcome to a brand new episode of Startups They'll Say. Hope you're all doing well. Today's episode I'm actually super excited about because it's the first episode we're doing it in person with our guest. And today's guest happens to be Lucas Josefiak from Widgetbook. He happens to be someone whom I know for the last 2 years, someone whom I've admired for doing a startup at a very young age, took on a big risk and jumped into this world of startups. So we'll be talking to Lucas today about his journey, what Widgetbook does, and some of the inputs that he can share with the world of startups. So Lucas, first of all, welcome to Startups They'll Say.
Thanks a lot for having me, Anthony.
It's our pleasure. So, Lucas, let's get things kicked off. I mean, I know you for a couple of years now. For those of you who don't know about the Flutter community, Flutter is a technology or an open source framework from Google, which I used to be part of. I'm still am. And I ran into Lucas while we were collaborating on with both of our companies. And I happened to be here at a conference called FlutterCon in Berlin. Lucas was kind enough to be part of this particular podcast and tell us about his journey. So, Lucas, I know you as the CEO of Widgetbook. I know you as this smart, exuberant CEO of a company, a guy who loves outdoors from all your adventures in California and here as well. And I know you like to party a bit as well. But other than that, I don't know anything else about you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe tell us about what led you to start Widgetbook as well.
Yeah, happy to share it. Thanks for the kind words. So, as you already said, I'm Lucas, co-founder and CEO of Widgetbook. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm really curious in general about a lot of things. I think that curiosity then led me into the part of on the part of entrepreneurship. Um, Other than that, I already mentioned I really love to spend time outdoors, away from the laptop as well. Helps me to relax and get a clear head. But to answer your question, how I got in the world of startups, how I got to what I'm doing today is I was inspired mainly by my uncle. My uncle is not an entrepreneur, but he also took a big risk because he moved with his family away from Germany. So I'm originally from Germany. My uncle as well, and he moved to Canada with his family. I think he was like in his late 20s or early 30s, 20 something years ago. And then just when I finished high school, I visited him in Canada, and was an amazing experience being abroad. Really for the first time, spent a few weeks there. I had another internship, and the first time away from home, away from the family, and so I could really see, okay, what kind of other life you could also live. And then when I started studying, I noticed very quickly, okay, entrepreneurship is the path I really like to go for. So I actually have a business background. So I studied international business. Business with like German, English, and French. So I had some languages with it as well. And I didn't particularly like my studies too much. It was good that you kind of learned how to sell yourself and how to talk. But I also wanted to at some point then have some real skills. And that's why on the side I also learned how to code. I have to say I'm not the best developer, so I can't get things to work. But I'm very happy that today I have a team that does it a lot better than I can. But very early in my studies, I founded a corporate startup, which basically was a company that came to the university, and they had a challenge prepared for the students. So what they did is, I think they brought like 20 people, 20 employees from that corporate, 20 students together in one room. And you had, I think, teams of four, so always two students, two people from the corporate, and 2 days of solving the challenge. And my team did quite well. And I then gave a presentation of what we did. The corporate liked it a lot, and we're like, "Hey, Lucas, would you like to help us on the project?" I was like, "Sure." let's do it. Didn't have much to lose. I think I was like 18, 19 years old. It actually became quite successful in that corporate, and I was very excited because we were supposed to get shares as well. And first I handled sales, but at some point we needed a web app as well, and I was like curious. Was like, sure. I learned how to code a bit. Can also build that web app, I suppose. And it turned out to work really well for the corporate. But unfortunately, that corporate went into financial struggles, which led to the CEO being fired. New CEO came, basically erased the entire board, and then it was decided that all innovation projects that don't exist for more than 2 years are going to be spinned into the company again. Not a spin-off that I and also the team was looking for. So no shares. Instead, they offered me quite a good compensation for that young age, but I declined because I was like, no, I really want to do my own stuff at that age. And I then started to build web apps because I enjoyed doing it while I was at the startup. And then I stumbled upon something that a lot of JavaScript developers must be familiar with. It's called Storybook.js, one of the most popular packages in the JavaScript or React ecosystem. And at some point, I then met today my CTO and co-founder Jens at basically the university incubator, and immediately clicked with quite a good connection. And Jens told me about Flutter, and Jens was super passionate about Flutter. He basically predicted it's going to be the future, going to be huge. And I checked it out, and I was like, Jens, yeah, could be right. Sounds really interesting. And then we started building Flutter apps. And as I told you, I'm not the best developer, so I always try to stick to the things I know. And there was no storybook for Flutter, so we first of all built it just for ourselves, and then at some point, some of our web development friends switched to Flutter as well, and they were like, "Hey, Lucas, we built a storybook for Flutter. Can you share with us?" We were like, "Sure, let's do it. Let's open source it." And we immediately built a Discord server as well to support the few users that we thought we're gonna get. Pretty much overnight, people kept swarming the server, and we are like, "Oh, okay, it's something that not only we need, but that also other people are looking forward to have." And then we started interviewing our Discord server and asked them, "Hey, how would you like us to improve the product for you?" And I immediately also had the idea of building something more than just this open source package around it, because Storybook, for everyone that is not familiar with it, it allows you to catalog all of your widgets from your website in a nice overview. It allows you basically to build your design system in code. And it's a great developer tool, but it's also only a developer tool. So it doesn't allow any collaboration with designers, product managers, QA testers, basically only for developers. And I was looking for something more holistically. And we interviewed the Discord server for it, and they were like, "Yeah, amazing, do it." And then around 2 years ago, we decided to quit our jobs, do it full time, and yeah, here we are today.
Awesome, Lucas. So glad I could understand the entire story behind Widgetbook. I knew you were adventurous, like I said. Amazing story. And I was also going to ask you about, how you found your co-founder. You already answered that question. So it's what, 2 years since you started now? 2022 since you started? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the open source package is something that we started around 2021 already, but it wasn't full time then. So back then we were still doing other things on the side, and we then incorporated the company in 2022.
Great. So obviously you had a plan when you started Widgetbook, when you quit your jobs and jumped into this. Has everything gone as per plan, or how many times have you had to start and stop and start again?
Yeah, I mean, everyone is saying startup is like a roller coaster, and I have to say, yeah, it's quite accurate. So a lot of times, but the question is always, let's say, how often you really have to throw everything away and start fully from scratch. And fortunately, to that extent, we didn't have to do it. But of course, we had a lot of stuff that we tried that didn't work. But fortunately, we had more stuff that worked in the end. That's why I'm still sitting here and can talk to you about Widgetbook. But to in the end, give you just some examples for us. For example, we thought that building the first paid version of Widgetbook. So in the end, you need to have money to have food in your fridge and to pay your rent. And building just an open source package doesn't do the trick. And that's why for us it was quite clear. Okay, we have to come up with a paid version of Widgetbook. And what is quite obvious to do for us is, I mean, I already told you, you can build your own design system with Widgetbook, and you can just host the Widgetbook, make it accessible for everyone, so that also designers, QA testers, product managers, everyone can look at it. And just hosting is something you can also easily do yourself. And that's why we thought initially, okay, it might take us quite long until we get the first revenue, because you can just host it yourself. But we very quickly found out, okay, there are a lot of companies that also are just interested in hosting. They just don't want to do it themselves. And that's why we were able to capture some revenue a lot sooner than we expected. And then we were like, okay, great. Let's raise venture capital and scale immediately. And we did manage to raise venture capital then quite soon. Basically, to get to a state where our customers were really happy with the cloud. That then took a lot longer than we expected, because just as hosting, it's nice, but the current product, so basically now nearly 2 years in the future, now the product is great. Now our customers are really happy with it. But it really took us some time to build the features that our customers were actually looking for. And that's why it's always kind of hard to predict. And so whenever you're building something that didn't exist before, it's quite difficult to predict how long will it take you to build it. Versus if you're just building, just now in parentheses here, if you're just building something that already exists before, if you're building just another app, then you might have the challenge of finding a better business model. But for us, it was basically, okay, the business model is quite straightforward. It's also quite straightforward finding customers for it. It's really difficult to build it, and that took longer than expected for the cloud.
Awesome. So you touched a little bit about venture funding, so to speak, Lucas. I mean, what stage of the company are you in 2 years in? I mean, did you have to bootstrap and start the company, and you found funding along the way? I mean, for those people who are listening to this, I mean, what sort of help do you need at all with any funding at all? Where do you stand right now?
And so what we did, and that is something that is specific for the country that we started in, but I'm quite sure it also exists in other countries. In Germany, we can get government grants if you're starting out as a young entrepreneur. So for us, for example, in German it's called the Exist Founders Grant, and basically you're writing a business plan for the idea that you're having. And then you're submitting it. It gets approved or rejected. And then you have enough money to fill your fridge and pay your rent. But it's, of course, not much money. So it doesn't get you any further than this. But the great thing is, if you're young, you don't have much responsibilities. For me, for example, I didn't have children. I didn't have a wife. I didn't have a mortgage to pay. So it was good enough for me. And then we basically had 1 year time. So we are three founders, and that grant allowed us to pay ourselves a small salary. and also to buy MacBooks with, with good performance to actually build a product in a good enough way. And that's how we started out. But as I said, might be different for other countries.
Awesome. And I'm also assuming you don't put too much in your fridge either. So you have a lot less to buy in your fridge.
Yeah, that's true. Even though I'm, as you know, I'm 2 meters tall or in 6 feet six, so I actually have to eat a lot.
Awesome. So I know for a fact, Lucas, I mean, in the last 2 years, I mean, you've grown in confidence. Like you said, you had some stops and starts. And yesterday in FlutterCon, your presentation was a testament to your growth. You had three live customers on the stage with you to talk about how they're using Widgetbook, the impact you had on, their app development journey. Can you tell us a little bit more about the growth path you're on and what you're expecting to do before, say, the end of this year?
Yeah, happy to share it. So, I mean, first of all, you talked about the presentation yesterday, and anyone here that is building their own tool, I can highly recommend when you giving a presentation at some conference, bringing customers with you to stage. It gives not only you and your team a great confidence boost and quite a proud moment, but it also shows other potential customers in the audience that what you're building is quite legit because you as a founder are of course always biased and will always say, yeah, my product is great. I mean, no founder will ever go to stage and be like, yeah, my product is shit. Don't use it. But when customers are saying it, outsiders, they basically they're not paid to do so. In the end, they are paying you for the product. That is just more legit. So quick tip here. But other than that, um, I already said that we have an open source package at the core, and our open source package really made it in the Flutter community. So our open source package is really popular. So we have a few thousand companies that are using the open source package to build their own design system, and these are uh, they range from startups to enterprises. Agencies do it as well. On every continent, Widgetbook is being used. So not only in Europe, heavily in the US by big companies as well. Also in Asia, even in Africa, basically everywhere in the world, Widgetbook is being used already in the open source package. And then on the cloud, we also have a lot of companies that already trust us there. And the amazing thing here is, in the past, Widgetbook was available in closed beta, so you could sign up for the access to Widgetbook Cloud, but you had to answer 8 questions, and depending on how you answered those questions, you either were allowed to already get access to Widgetbook or not. And what Anthony mentioned so yesterday on stage, um, I also could proudly announce that Widgetbook Cloud is now publicly, generally available. So anyone can now just go to the website, sign up for the access to Widgetbook Cloud, and then self onboard and get the access. I mean, of course, we're also happy to help with demo calls if you like, but no longer needed. And that's why we will definitely see a lot of growth now, because a lot of companies that were not able to try Widgetbook Cloud in the past now finally can.
That is incredible. Yeah, I mean, I could not agree with you more about the fact that, I mean, you have a live customer testament on the stage. I mean, nothing can beat that, right? You can put all you want within double quotes on the website, but having them in front of your prospects in the audience and saying, "Here are my happy customers," that was really nicely done. So great story, Lucas. I mean, obviously, as a CEO, you continue to think about not just today, you got to think about what's tomorrow, what's the next 6 months, what's the next 2 years, 3 years. So, with that in mind, I mean, what keeps you up at night? I know you do a lot of outdoors to relax. But what keeps you up at night to keep Widgetbook going?
Pretty much what doesn't keep you up at night, right? Uh, in the end, as a CEO, you like not everything is just nice, um, because if you're, let's say, a regular employee, at some point at your day you go home, and then you can kind of turn off your head, do something else, and then just come back to work. And your boss might tell you, okay, these are the priorities, you can work on them, fine. But if something doesn't work at Widgetbook, ultimately, it's my responsibility. So I I can never escalate something to someone else. So I mean, the great thing is that I have amazing co-founders and that have their own areas of responsibility. So for example, something is broken in the product. Jens doesn't come to me and is like, Lucas, you need to fix it. So that's something that's good. Where I have Jens on the technical side, or Julius with finance and legal. But if there's issues with customers, with investors, those things that in the end could potentially kill the company, it's, I would say, unfortunately, but also fortunately, my responsibility. So I'm in the end in charge and can just not say, if the house is burning, yeah, I don't care, I just go home. That doesn't work. And um, then it's also a question of your mindset. How much do you care about the product, the startup that you're building? How much are you caring about your team? And for me, the past 2 years, I've basically done nothing else than building Widgetbook. Um, in the end, it's a huge time commitment that I've been having, and the people that are working at Widgetbook also are really close to me. So these are the people I'm seeing more than anyone else in my life, and I really want to make this work. And fortunately, we are on a good path. Um, but there have also been times where it got a bit harder, and where you also had to take difficult decisions that were just necessary for the business. So we, for example, also had to lay off employees where it didn't work culturally anymore. And these are, of course, decisions that are necessary, but that are these are decisions that you don't want to take. You know, it's crucial for the business, but I would much rather have enjoyed, I don't know, to go for a workout or to go outdoors than having to lay off an employee, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, so my next question is going to build on something you said, which is culture, right? As a super young entrepreneur and maybe with very little experience of building the company, where did you draw inspiration from? What sort of culture you wanted in the company? You know, how to keep everybody's morale high? And like you said, I mean, you know, if it's not a culture fit, I mean, you got to identify that quickly and fix that before it becomes a bigger problem. But I mean, as a CEO, I mean, what sort of culture did you want to put together at
Yeah, so I think here you don't get an answer that fits for everyone. So I think you just have to be authentic as a person, and in the end as a team. And so for us, for example, I mentioned I have two more co-founders, and I mentioned Jens already as our CTO, and then we also got Julius, and Julius and I already know each other for what is it now, 8 years. So we basically started studying together, met at the first day, and it immediately clicked. So we are very similar personality wise. With Jens, it also clicked very easily. So we three get along really well, and for us, it was pretty much easy to work together personality wise, and we were then just looking for people that are meeting the same energy, share the same values, and it was something that was very important for us early on. And then a hack, and that might be an unpopular opinion, especially among a tech audience, but I really believe in having the team in office, especially in the early days. It just helps a lot. Um, and for us, for example, we after we raised our funding round, we took the decision of moving with the company to another city. So we started in a smaller city in Germany, but then we moved with the company to Berlin. And the main reason was it really allowed us to have the team on site, because to get the best talent in the Flutter community, we decided to also hire from abroad, and we brought together an amazing team. And Berlin was just more attractive there, and then we had the chance to having the team on board. And what also helped a lot is that we also hired people that we knew before, or that we mainly knew before. So, for example, we got Roa, who is a Google developer expert for Flutter, has like 20K followers on Twitter, so really popular in the community as well. And I knew her from a Flutter conference. So I pretty much how Anthony and me are talking at the FlutterCon here right now. That's also I got to know Roa. And if you know the people already from some experiences before, if you already, for example, had a beer with them, then you might know immediately, okay, that can work or can't work. Um, so that's why I would always suggest hiring people that you know from some experiences before, or at least had recommendations from people that you know and trust, and then try to spend as much time as possible in person with these people, at least in the early days. At some point, if your company scales, of course, go even full remote. But I think having at least some time with them in the office definitely helps.
That's awesome, Lucas. I mean, obviously, you got to have your own personality and your own stamp on it with your thinking. But at the same time, I mean, you've also used kind of the rule book, so to speak, on taking some best practices and using some people known well in the community and bringing them on board. So it's a kind of a number of best practices, so to speak. Go ahead, Lucas.
Yeah, and one thing that I also like to add is that, especially if you're a first time founder and you're raising venture capital, I would really advise you to not only go for the VCs, for the funds, but also to the angel investors for your business that can just help you with their advice, because these are experienced entrepreneurs. They really know how to do stuff, and then build a close relationship with those investors. I mean, when you select them for your business, you already believe they could add substantial value, and you should of course challenge them before they invest, because they will be around for some time. It's easy to it's difficult to get them out. That's why do your due diligence there on the investors. But as long as you do it, they are there to help after they invested. You know, you're they are even monetarily incentivized to help you, and that also helped or is helping us a lot.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, Lucas. I mean, we spoke about culture on your team. From my experience in the startup world, I mean, the culture is super important for your investor community as well. If you have the wrong mindset with your investor community, that can totally derail your day and your job as well. So that's a super important point that you said. So, last question for you, Lucas. I mean, I mean, I already mentioned you're a young entrepreneur. You already have given a bunch of nuggets to people as advice. But if there's folks in college or anyone thinking of starting a company, anything else you'd like to add in terms of advice before they jump in to start a company?
Just do it. So I think there it also depends on your personality. So there are people who are less or more likely to overthink, and in the past, I definitely try to perfect things often, and really try to always find the best solution for something. That's definitely not the way to go. So unfortunately, that changed, and now I'm a lot more like 80-20. It's always 20% effort can get 80% done. I mean, of course, there are situations where it needs to be 100%, but in the end, you just need to try. And uh, in the end, if you fail with something, um, then try to fail rather quickly, because then you can just stand up and try again. And the great thing is, if you're young, you already had that. You don't have any responsibilities, so there's no drawback in founding when you're young. So either it becomes successful, and then you're already settled very early in your life, um, or you, and now in parentheses again, you fail, um, but then you had a great experience. So especially if you're optimizing for learning at a young age, I think there's nothing else you can do to learn quicker. And especially if you manage to raise venture capital, you can learn from very experienced entrepreneurs then, and also usually startup founders support each other a lot. So I'm super happy and grateful that I have amazing other startup friends, very like very openly sharing everything. And of course, in the end, you always have to keep in mind that it's a lot more likely to fail than to really succeed with it. But so what? Then you just try again, and in the end, um, I believe if you're young, just do it.
That is so cool, Lucas. I mean, I have to say, I kind of guessed you were going to say just do it, just knowing you. So I kind of preempted that that was coming. But what an awesome episode, Lucas. Thanks so much for sharing all your insights today with the community here at Startups They'll Say. I will always be cheering for Widgetbook, and I'll be sure to give everyone the details of Widgetbook's website, how they can reach out to you, all of that. Thanks so much for joining us. And for those of you listening, thanks so much for listening. Thank you.